A very warm welcome to InfoSec Train, everyone. So, though I have already done couple of interview sessions on SOC, if you just go and visit our InfoSec Trains YouTube channel, you will see there are a lot of interview sessions which we do regularly conduct on Security Operations Center. But this one is being basically created with a motive where we will be talking about more complex scenarios in terms of your interviews. What sort of hurdles do you face? Apart from interviews, what are other things which you have to work upon? So this has to be this had to be addressed by us, and with that particular requirement, we are up for here and presenting you our exclusive SOC interview prep on terms of scenario based questions, plus how you can use the things which are available at your disposal to make your chances much better in order to basically crack the interview for SOC. So I hope you all are pretty much excited as me, and so let's get started. Let me showcase you all our today's agenda. So in our today's agenda, we will be having a quick overview of SOC roles and responsibilities, where we are going to talk about what are various different roles and responsibilities in SOC which one has to perform, and what multiple different types of roles one can acquire or responsibilities one can acquire in order to basically gain the lead position or the senior position in SOC. Then we'll talk about like how we do handle these scenario based questions. It's not just finding the correct answers, but what is actually the trick to basically handle these type of scenario based questions, what your interviewer is expecting from you in these particular type of questions. We'll talk about that. Then we'll talk about like the importance of soft skills and situational awareness, which pretty much everyone thinks that yes, it is okay to have and it's not required while interview. I'll demonstrate you a scenario where how you can use these particular skills and increase your chances to basically get further ahead. And then we'll talk about how we can use our networking, our LinkedIn profiles, our other platforms, social platforms, and how we can increase our chances of basically being selected, and how we can stand out of the box as compared to the other candidates. So let's get started on our part. So buckle up your seat belt, guys, and let's get started with this journey. So first of all, starting with SOC roles and responsibilities. Most of you might be aware about it. Most of you might see there are lots of job opportunities around these particular roles and responsibilities. But I'll try to cover it up in two different ways, where I'll try to explain you the roles on the basis of responsibilities and roles on the basis of the positions. So, SOC, Security Operations Center, those who do not know or those who are here for the very first time on this particular part, because you seem this particular field as a fascinating one. So, Security Operations Center is, guys, basically a department. Mostly you will see that there are lots of confusing article over internet with where people do say that it's a collection of tools, it's collection of people. I will say it's collection of tools, people, process, and technology. So multiple things when are working together under one single roof, just like your sales department or a finance department does works within the organization, or a marketing department does works. Similarly, there is a security department which is working 24/7 on the security of your organization. That department can be your security operations center. So SOC is a department within your organization which is responsible for every activity from identifying to preventing to detecting to mitigating to remediation to responding, A to Z of cybersecurity or information security, or you can say a one-stop shop for information security within the organization is your SOC. So we'll talk about the roles on the basis of positions. First of all, that what are these positions? I'll give you a quick overview so that you can get an idea that which position is eligible you are eligible for, and which position you should target, and how to proceed for the next one, what extra skills will be required to go to the next one. So the very first one is tier 1 or L1 security analyst or SOC analyst. So some people do call them SOC analyst, some do call them security analyst, some do call them support security analyst. So multiple different names are given, but almost the job is equivalent to same roles and responsibilities. So the role of L1 will be basically they will be the first line of defender within the organization, within the SOC, and they will be receiving and they will be looking into the alerts on the daily basis. That means there will be tools like your SIM solutions, your EDRs, and other security monitoring tools on the basis of which tickets will be created, and those tickets will be the ones which L1 will be receiving on daily basis, which they have to review on the basis of their relevance and urgency, and then they have to carry out the triage to ensure that the genuine security incidents are occurring, not the false positive ones. So overall, they do oversee and configures the monitoring tools in terms of alerts. They do work on the alerts on daily basis. They do identify whether this alert is a true positive or a false positive, and accordingly they do identify what should be the response step for it. If they are capable enough to respond that particular alert at their own, they will do that. Else those particular alerts are being triaged to L2 upper here. So L2, on the other hand, are basically the one who handles the real security incidents which are being passed on by L1 analyst. So they are more experienced and knowledgeable than L1s, and they can utilize their skills. Multiple skill sets are there of L2. Now one can be a threat intelligence expert, one can be basically an incident response specialist, one can be basically a vulnerability management specialist. So multiple different roles are there for L2 in terms of responsibilities. Multiple of them are there, so they will be utilizing their skills in order to basically respond to those particular security incidents which are being passed on by L1. So they do have knowledge of incident response. At basic minimum knowledge of incident response should be there. They should have the knowledge of threat intelligence, so that they can analyze those affected systems. They can identify and they can carry out the in-depth analysis to find the perpetrator, to find the type of attack, or to basically identify that how to what extent the data or systems are being impacted. So it create they are the ones who creates and implements the strategy of containment and recovery for the organization. So those are basically L2 analysts. They do have more responsibilities, more severe work than L1s, but they do have their extensive knowledge using which they had to basically work upon the issues which L1s are not able to resolve. Then basically next role or on the basis of position comes is L3. Now L3, some organization might have L3 and SOC lead as the same position. Some might have L3 and shift lead as the same position. So what is the role of L3? So they are the ones who are more senior than L2s as well in terms of experience. They are more experienced than L2s, and they will be the one who will be working on critical incidents. Like they work on alerts, they do work on security incidents, and they do work on critical security incidents. Let's say there is basically a 0 day basically being exploited in wild. So L3 will be called for that particular part, or any other particular critical scenario is there for the organization. L3 has to come and play their role. Now we cannot say that L3 is only subject matter expert of one thing. Like they have to be jack of all trades. They should be able to carry out vulnerability analysis or penetration testing if needed. Let's say to assess the resilience of the organization, they should be able to carry out threat hunting or malware analysis activities to basically isolate the area of weakness or that needs attention. They should be one who can review the alerts, the quality of alerts, and the quality of intelligence or security data which tools are consuming, and they should be able to identify the gaps between the system, and they should be able to basically identify the unknown vulnerabilities or threats which are there within the system. So they do require extensive knowledge and advanced knowledge of multiple various aspects. So those are basically L3. If I do talk about the years of experience, L1 will be the one who can be 0 to 2 years of experience in information security. L2 will be the one which can be 2 to 4.5 or 5 years of experience, or I would say 2 to 4 would be more enough for L2. 4 to basically 5 or 6 years of experience can be in L3, and anything beyond 6 years and plus basically can be for SOC manager positions. Now, in between, some organization might have director of incident response, some might have director of information security, some might have basically a totally different position. But a generic way basically goes on the hierarchies or on the position is L1, L2, L3, and managers. So SOC managers basically are the one. who will be directing entire SOC operations. Like these will be the one who will be responsible for entire SOC team, who will be responsible for syncing between the technical SOC team, like analyst, and the engineers of the SOC, or let's say between they will be the link between the management of the organization and the technical team of the organization. Like they might report to CISO, and they have to basically take care of all the technical teams as well. So they are responsible for hiring, training, creating security strategies and plans within the SOC. And also their expertise is needed in order to basically orchestrate and direct to major security threats within the organization. So entire planning of DR or BCP is basically on the shoulders or responsibilities of SOC manager, and they should be able to do multiple of these particular various aspects. So that is guys on the basis of positions we do have. Now next they can have CISO. CISO basically is the face of the security of the organization. So those are the face like security of the organization, and they will be the one who will be establishing the security related strategies throughout the organization. They will be the one who will be creating operations, policies, strategies, and working closely with C-suite people like CEO, CTO, CSO, CFO, CIO, and will be reporting the management on the critical security issues. So that will be the role of CISOs in the organization. So that is on the basis of responsibilities which we do have. Next is SOC roles on the basis of, sorry, that was all on the basis of positions which we do have. Now let's do talk upon the basis of responsibilities. So when I do talk about responsibilities, now responsibilities can be divided as per the various different skills. For example, if I do talk about, let's start with forensic investigator. So they will be the one who will be expert in RCA, that is root cause analysis. You give them network, you give them system, you give them even the memory of your system or disk of your system, or let's say email or any sort of tool. They should be able to find the root cause of breach. So they are the one who identify the root cause of the analysis, root cause of the attack, and they are the one who can perform RCA to identify multiple various aspects like who was the attacker, how did the attacker attack, how did they got the access, what they have performed, what happened through which they were able to take the control of the system. Entire WH questions about the attack or incident, forensic investigator should have the skills of identifying those things. So that is one thing which we do have as a part of forensic investigator. Next is guys security engineer. So engineers basically are in charge of maintaining and updating tools and systems. Like they are the one who will be giving SOC analyst a playground to play the entire thing. So that is what we do have as SOC engineers. Like they do create the things. Engineers are the ones who create the things, isn't it? So same way, SOC engineers will be the one who will be implementing, creating the entire environment for us in which SOC analyst can sit and can work, right? So those are basically your SOC engineers. They are one, they are the one who will be responsible for maintaining, updating the systems, the tools, and usually basically they are known as hardware and software specialist. So let's say you onboarded a tool, email gateway security tool, which needs to be configured with SIM. So an engineer will be coming up over here into the picture, and they will be the one who will be responsible for that particular integration. So if you do have knowledge of networks and you do have knowledge of applications integrations, this can be one of the suitable profiles for you. That is security or SOC engineers. Then next is guys SOC manager, which I believe I have covered it up over here. So the one who directs the entire operations, responsible for your entire SOC team, from maintaining, hiring, training, and creating security strategies, all comes on the shoulder of SOC manager. Next we do have is compliance auditor. So they are the one who basically works on the readiness of the compliance of the organization. Now since we are working in this particular era where we might have businesses in more than one locations, geolocations, even in one single location, there are lots of compliances or regulatory frameworks which you need to adhere in order to basically provide your clients a prominent and a standard way of solutions. So you need to be compliant with various different market standards and market compliances like PCI DSS or GDPR or SOX as per your industry or business requirements. So compliance auditor will be the one who will be having the skills of compliances, the expertise of compliances, and will be able to verify the organization's readiness as compared to those particular compliance and standards. So they will be the one who will be doing the audits within the internal audits within the organization for those particular compliances. Then they will be the one who will be identifying the gaps and will be working on the resolution for those particular gaps with the help of various different technical teams. So those are your compliance auditors. Incident responder, one of the most common role of SOC is basically incident responder. They are the one who will be basically responding to all the incident which are being happening within the SOC. They will be the one who will be detecting, or I would say working upon the entire incidents which are being identified. Now sometimes SOC analyst and incident responder can be one single role, one single position can be a responsibility of your, as a you might have incident response and SOC analyst as a similar responsibility. But if you are targeting any big organization, they do have a separate incident response team who does have expertise in order to respond to the incidents in a step by step approach. So yeah, I was talking about incident responder. So their critical skills are basically being used to mitigate and to remediate basically the steps or to mitigate or remediate the incidents with the minimal impact to the business. So they will be the one who will be basically responsible for managing incidents within the company and communicating the security requirements to the organization in case if there is a significant breach. So taking the incident, first of all preparing the organization for that incident, then, secondly, basically identifying the incidents. If being identified by analyst, working on the containment and eradication of that incident and mitigating that particular incident at first, so that business can be continued by recovering back the asset to the organization, and then basically remediating that particular incident in a long run, so that that incident does not appears back in future. So that is incident responders roles and responsibilities. Then there is SOC analyst, again one of the most famous role, which you will see there are lots of openings across the market on this particular role, and we positions can be totally different. I have already explained up over here. So security analyst or SOC analyst basically are responsible for detecting potential security threats and basically handling them. So they are basically kind of investigators who basically works on multiple different types of incidents and try to investigate those particular incidents by correlating the data from more than one platform. Let's say taking the particular IP, going to a threat intel portal, taking the report of that particular IP, verifying it with our internal database, and then basically working on the SIM solutions to identify if any other systems are communicating with that particular IP. So all these particular responsibilities are of SOC analyst. So they are responsible for implementing security measures. Sometimes they are also involved in disaster recovery plans, and because they do know the in and out of the organization, and they do know how they can correlate multiple tools together in order to work within the organization. So those are basically your SOC analyst. Last up over here is basically your threat hunter. So instead of incident responder who works once the incident has been triggered, threat hunters are basically the proactive people within the organization who just assume that organization might be compromised with one of the advanced APT attacks or any sort of one of the advanced attacks which has not generated any sort of alert within the organization to generate an incident, but they always do assume that attacker might be present within our system already. So that can be basically one of the reasons where they can work upon multiple different aspects of proactiveness. They assume that system is already compromised, and they do create an assumption or hypothesis on the basis of which they do identify the threats within the system and eliminate them before those are basically causing the impact within the system. So they do not wait for any sort of tool to give them the alert. They do just take an assumption that, let's say, PowerShell, I'm just giving a simple example that what can be an assumption. So let's say an assumption can be PowerShell is being misused by attacker within the organization. So they will go in the system, they will check the PowerShell logs, they will identify if there is any sort of PowerShell execution which can be basically not approved by any sort of admin or any sort of engineer within the organization, and they will work upon that particular situation, right? Then moving to the most important part of our today's session, that is basically handling security based SOC interview questions. Now this is something where critical expertise is must for us. So we will be talking about these particular scenario based questions. Now scenario based questions are quite common way for an employer or for an interviewer to assess your skills and experience in SOC role, right? So they will basically typically they will present a situation, hypothetical situation or scenario in front of you, and then will be asking you how to handle it, right? So to answer to scenario based question, there are lots of things which you need to take care. I will address these particular scenario based questions in front of you. But first of all, let me give you the tips, and I want you all to basically take a pen or paper or use your mobile phone to create the notes of it. So always listen carefully to the question. Understand the scenario and what interviewer is trying to ask to you. So clarify your scenario first of all, and then basically take your time to basically process your answer. It's not like that immediately you have to give the answer as soon as the interviewer asks. You can take a pause of a minute or two where you can phrase your entire thought process, and then you can give the answer. So take your time to think about your answer. Don't feel rushed to basically respond. And the very best thing which I'll tell you with my experience in terms of SOC interviews, as soon as your interviewer asks you that now let's discuss a scenario based question, let's take a scenario, that means always consider that halfway you are already cleared your interview. Your interviewer is interested in your profile, and 50% you are already being selected, because not everyone does ask the scenario based questions to every people. So if they would have already been liked you, they will start with this scenario based question. And if they do ask, then consider yourself 50% already up for that profile. Now you have to give your last 50% best so that you can be selected for that particular opportunity. So take your time, think about your answer, do not rush. Then another thing can be basically be specific and detailed in your answer. That means describe your thought process in such a way that is quite explaining your entire idea and what steps you would have taken to handle that particular scenario, right? So that is one thing which is very important. Then always use experience, demonstrate your skills and experience with examples. Let's say if you have worked upon similar to that type of scenario in your previous experience, or if you have experience of handling those type of similar scenarios in past, be sure to mention it. It's quite important. I'm not asking you to give up the details of your previous employer, but try to make it in such a way that there was this type of scenario and these were the steps how you responded to that. If you can basically do that effectively, if you can communicate that answer effectively, it increases your chances a lot to be into the organization. So use examples if you do have, right? Now there are lots of interview based questions. If you will go on Google, just put SOC scenario based questions, lots of people have uploaded lots of stuff. So I'm not going to basically those particular stuffs. I will just cover five major pointers which I do feel are most common ones and most useful ones for you to work upon. There are lots of already basically videos being created on the common attacks like phishing and ransomware, so that's why I've not included it. But yes, let's do discuss about these particular scenarios up over here. So let's take the very first scenario, which is quite common, like critical systems down. Let's say your interviewer might ask you the question that how would you handle a situation where a critical system goes down and you are not able to basically contact to your vendor for the support. So in that scenario, what you will do? Now they've asked you a question that your critical system is down. That means your business is having an operational impact, and then you're not able to get in touch with your vendor who is supporting you in that particular situation. So that's a challenging scenario, and it requires systematic approach to minimize the risk and ensure the security of the organization, right? So you can start with by assessing the impact. Like you can basically tell them that first of all, what I'll do is I'll assess the impact of that particular attack on my critical scenario. Like I will identify the affected areas or the assets, and then I will identify that what potential vulnerabilities might have caused that particular system failure. Of course, we need to kick in our backups, but before that we need to isolate our issue. So if possible, we will isolate the issue, or isolate the affected system or segment from rest of our network, so any further compromise or damage can be restricted. So that is something which is main thing up over here. And the very third step and common step is activate the backups and your contingency plan. Every organization does have these particular type of contingency plans, which is actually the plan B of the organization for those critical systems, those money value systems. So activate those particular plans, let's say backup security system, alternative access controls, or any sort of security personal adjustments which can basically keep the business running, and with that we can resolve the issue on our main devices. So these are basically the ways how through which you can try to answer, and then you can basically take the community support or peer support. In case if you are not able to reach your vendor, you can try to basically have see your business has been continued. So after that you need to document while troubleshooting that system. You need to document what all steps you have taken, what messages, error messages or diagnostics you have attempted to fix, because when once you reach your vendor, they will ask you all these details, so you have to give them. So documentation is very important, and for doing that you might need a community or a peer support. So basically always rely upon these type of forums, but do not 100% these forums, because attackers do have access to these particular types of forums, and any sort of workaround or insight which you might find from this forum, it can mitigate your situation temporary, but it can basically create another backdoor for attacker. So when you are taking a peer support, always do validate it in your beta environment and then push it to your production environment. Then you can contact your vendors alternatives, you can escalate it from your vendor side, and these things basically can help you to respond these type of scenario based questions, right? So that is important part. Timely communication, clear documentation, and a well prepared response can help you to work around critical situations like these. So redundancy is basically the answer which your interviewer is trying to ask you. Redundancy means backups. Backups are very important for the organization. So the next part is, guys, the next question is staff competency. Let's say you are trying to apply for L3 or managerial position, and then you have been asked that how would you handle a situation where, let's say, your new employee in the SOC is not adequately trained and is basically struggling to perform their duties. That means your staff is not competent enough in order to work with the production environment. So what you will do in that case? Now again, this is not a question which is technical. This is question which will assess your capabilities to manage the staff or team under you. So interviewer is trying to look to your approach rather than basically expecting a technical expertise from you. So in that case, how you can answer is you can answer in terms of supervision and support, that you will assign a senior member of your team to closely mentor and supervise the new employee, right? And then you will review your training materials. Those who have already basically job in SOC, you guys might agree to this, that once you basically get a job, for the initial first few weeks you are being trained on various different materials and resources, right? So the new staff might have also undergone through it. If they are not able to do it even after that particular training, you should review your training materials, whether those are insufficient or outdated, right? And ensure the relevant documentation and resources for your newly staffed training purposes. Even you can create customized training plans where you can basically develop the plans to the point where employees are struggling, focusing on their specific weakness and their knowledge gaps, and then give them hands-on training, provide them hands-on training to practice on their skills, regularly take feedbacks and assessments which can help you in that particular area, and provide them additional training resources. There are lots of tools and platforms these days which can help you to monitor the progress of employees in that particular situation, and these things basically should be documented for your future hiring as well. So this is the way you can basically give the answer for this response, like for this particular scenario based question where they are checking your capabilities to handle your staff and situations like these. Then the very third one basically is proactive analysis. Now over here there can be multiple questions. Let's say they will ask you how you will use your proactive threat hunting analysis, right? Or let's say they will ask you, let's say you receive a threat intelligence report where there is a specific IP that is associated with a known malicious actor. Now that IP is currently active on your network. So how would you use the information to investigate and to respond, right? Because your threat intel has given you that there is a IP which is malicious and your network is connected to that IP. So how you will work? Addressing the very first scenario, we will start with isolating and containment. This is not where we do have time for preparation or documentation. We know that one of the systems in our environment is in contact with malicious IP. Isolate and contain the threat. That is the very first step which you will do. It's not just like that any intel which you receive it's always true. There are lots of case studies that due to improper threat intelligence or due to bad threat intelligence, organizations have been compromised. So verify your threat intelligence always, a proper due diligence on your threat intelligence, the credibility and the reliability of your threat intelligence information is most important. So cross reference your intelligence, gather more information as much as possible for you, then analyze the malicious activity within the system, compromised system, identify their attack vector, that how that particular IP came into communication with your network, whether user downloaded some sort of file, they visited any website, what is basically the attack vector that needs to be identified, assess the impact and the scope, classify the incident that whether it's a high priority incident, classify the incident on the basis of the severity, on the basis of the data exposure, right? And on the basis of your business impact you need to classify the incident, so properly an escalation team can work on that particular incident. And once you are done with that, you need to basically activate your IR team up over here. In case of that particular incident's confirmation, they will eradicate the threat, they will recover the system, restore the system, and they will have the proper communication and reporting to your relevant stakeholders. So this is something where you can work on proactive analysis in terms of threat intelligence. Now my second scenario for this proactive analysis can be that how would you basically use your threat hunting proactive analysis. Now let's say organizations are always having these particular tools within our environment which can give us the alerts like EDR, like SIM, DLPs, IDS, IPS, everything. But what if guys there is a scenario where attackers have already intruded your system but none of your system resources or tools have generated any alert. So this is where we need to work on something which we do call as dwell time. So over here, interviewer is asking you about this importance of this dwell time and what it is and how you can work on this. So dwell time is nothing in a layman's language. You can say dwell time is the time difference between the incident happen and incident detection. Like you guys might have heard about GoDaddy's hack. Like GoDaddy was being attacked in 2019 and they got to know about it in 2022 December. So it took them that much amount of time. So when you are attacked from that particular time period to when incident occurred to when incident was being detected. So this time difference is known as dwell time. And entire efforts of the organization in terms of proactive threat analysis is or threat hunting is to reduce this dwell time. No one wants to basically have a organization where incident happens and we are not being aware of it, right? We should immediately get the sign of that incident and we should stop that on time. So to reduce this dwell time, your interviewer is asking you the question on your proactive threat hunting analysis, how you would utilize. So you can start with that endpoint threat hunting, network threat hunting, SIM based threat hunting, EDR based threat hunting, MITRE attack based threat hunting, APT based threat hunting. These are various different approaches which you can work upon by implementing various different scenarios, by implementing various different assumptions or hypotheses in which, as per your environment, as per your basically industry, as per your attackers, like attackers history who have attacked you in past, you can basically create a pool of resources where you can see what type of or what category of attackers are interested in attacking your organization, then identify what sort of tools and techniques they do use and what they can do with environment like yours. And then you can create your assumptions that okay, since attackers are known to attack Windows environment and we do have Windows environment in our organization, so they might have taken control of one of our Windows endpoint and they might be exploiting the Windows processes by doing the DLL injection, right? So this is the way through which you can think and you can give the answers that proactive analysis can help your organization to reduce the dwell time, and that's how you can utilize your threat hunting to basically identify the incidents before any alerts are being triggered, right? So this was this proactive analysis. Then the very next one is again an important one because lots of interviewers are asking you in case if you are applying for any sort of incident response role, you might be asked about this one, like that let's say they will ask you that how would you or how do you maintain and update your incident response plan in SOC. Now every organization might have a different approach of doing that. Someone might have given that to third party to do so, but maintaining and updating incident response plans in SOC are very important to ensure your organization does have a well prepared respond to all those evolving cyber threats. And it is quite important because it will be the only thing which will be helping you to immediately respond to various different categories of incident. So over here they are asking you the importance of playbooks and runbooks, that how playbooks and runbooks can be helpful within the organization and how you can utilize them at the type of incidents. Ignore my handwriting, guys. I'm more familiar with typing. So playbooks and runbooks are something which they are asking you. So over here you can answer that if we do have a dedicated established team who is overseeing and maintaining the incident response plan, like that can be one of the solutions. Now that team should not have only incident response people, it should be combination of security analysts, incident responders, representatives from IT team, legal team, compliance team, so that overall each of them basically can give their reviews and create a proper established incident response plan. Then those plans should be regularly reviewed to ensure that those are currently aligned with our organization's objectives and our current compliance requirements. At least like annually or more frequently, these particular plans should be reviewed with the changes which occurs in our organization's threat landscape. Then there should be a proper classification of the incidents with the scenarios. Let's say a ransomware incident is a high category of incident as compared to an incident which can be a different one, right? So you should be able to classify the incidents. With that, very important thing is guys communication, like notification basically of that incident when that occurs, whom should be contacted, whom should be notified, that's very important. So contact information is the very important part in case if you are dealing with incident response of your external stakeholders, right? So those are the things through which you can give the answers. And of course, one more thing which you can add up over here in this, where you can suggest your interviewers to have a mock drill, where you can trigger that incident response plan and check the effectiveness of that incident response plan. And accordingly, you can identify the gaps, review them, and take feedbacks and basically work upon those particular feedbacks. So that is one thing through which you can answer this scenario question. And then the most commonly but most useful question which you will see, false positive. So they might ask you a question that can you describe a time when you had to deal with a false positive incident in SOC? If yes, then how did you resolve it? So this is something where they are checking your previous work, that how you did actually worked upon a real life scenario. Of course, dealing with false positive incidents can be can be one of the most common challenge which can be in SOC, right? So you need to understand. For example, let me take a scenario that you are receiving an alert indicating a suspicious activity on one of the user's workstation. Now that alert suggests that there is an unauthorized access to sensitive data, right? This is what that alert is suggesting, that there is unauthorized access to sensitive data now, and it appears to be a potential security incident. So how you will work on that particular part? So if you do have any scenarios like this where you have worked upon any sort of false positive, that is something to be answered. Let me answer you this one, the scenario which I have taken, where you do receive an alert of unauthorized access to sensitive data. So your first initial alert analysis will be determining the source IP, the destination IP, the timestamps, and the associated IOCs if there are any, right? Also check the severity of your alert in that particular time. So your initial alert analysis is quite important. Secondly, data gathering. You should be able to collect the data as much as you can, like relative logs, relative additional data, network captures, all these things you can do. And one thing which I would like to highlight, which is not part of this, but mostly people do this type of mistake, like uploading a pcap file or any sort of data to third party websites. Trust me guys, never do that. You might have a case on you for copyright infringement and other things, because these network capture and these particular logs does have extensive details about your critical systems or your business systems. It might include your system types, it might include your date and time, your IP addresses, and various different internal details. So never upload them, right? Then after you have gathered the data, check with the user of that particular system, identify the user, and verify the user's roles and access privileges, right? Determine the assets sensitivity, of course, that is important. And then identify that how user would have got access to that particular data. You do have EDR in place, right? Using which you can do endpoint analysis, where you can identify the logs of that particular workstation, and you can look for suspicious processes or registry changes or any sort of file type modifications. Of course, as I mentioned, network traffic is quite important. Equally with endpoint analysis, you can do network analysis as well. And then do give a check that for these type of alerts, whether there are any known false positive or not. Let's say there might be any known false positive for those type of alerts which have been generated. Like consult your historical records, do a historical analysis within your incident database to identify if there are any sort of similar alerts which have been triggered and later were being determined as false positive. If there is a history of similar alerts, then you need to fine tune your rules on that particular basis. With that, you can correlate that particular data with your threat intelligence. Of that is again one of the important parts, correlate with your threat intelligence. Review your security tools and rules in case if it is a known false positive, right? And then document that particular process, fine tune your rules, and document your entire investigation, including your findings, your actions taken, and your decision to classify this particular incident with false positive. Like there should be a proof of concept which suggests that it's a false positive, so that it can be a future reference for the team members who will be working on the similar type of incidents in future. So these are like few of the scenario based questions which your interviewer might ask. Moving to our next part. Now this is quite underrated but quite important slide which I will say. So soft skills and situational awareness are more of an essential to get any sort of role in SOC, right? Apart from like interview based question, like scenario based questions and your interview prep with the interview based questions, soft skills are quite important. This is where it basically let your interviewer know about you, that what you do have apart from your technological expertise, like whether you are a team player or not, whether you are self-aware or not, whether you do have a problem solving skills or not, whether you do have an organizational or listening skills or not. So those are quite important, right? When you are working within a team, and of course a team which has to work 24/7 on SOC, and you have to be very coordinated with each other because SOC is all about coordinated response, right? So soft skills are quite important, and these can be basically quite useful for you. So work on your communication skills where you are able to communicate effectively. Work on your teamwork skills where you can be working as a individually, of course you have to give your part, but working as a part of team to investigate and to respond to security incidents, that's quite important. And one thing which I have seen in market that people are missing in terms of soft skill is problem solving skills. So as a SOC analyst, you have to work on multiple things and you have to think critically and solve the problems under pressure. So therefore you need the ability to identify the root cause of that problem, then develop and implement a solution to prevent it. It's quite easy. There will be tools, there will be things which will be there in place to solve it, but in order to solve it, first of all you should be able to identify it. So solving skill is the scarce in market, and I want each and every one of you who is present up over here to work on those problem solving skills. So that is one of the important parts. And of course, like if you're working for at a client side, right, so customer service skills are very important. So these are soft skills which I would say should be there. But with this, situational awareness is very important. Like you should be up to date with the latest happening around you. Like have you guys heard about MGM resorts attack? Have you guys did a detailed analysis on it? Because if you are going for an interview today or tomorrow or in this week, definitely your interviewer is going to ask you about that particular attack, that particular attack. So whenever you are going for an interview, just basically read from online forums that what is happening around you, including what all people, what all places, what all companies basically are doing, what sort of activities, what happened with them, how did they worked upon it, because these things can help you to identify and to respond to your security incidents quite effectively. So latest threats and vulnerabilities information you should be able to anticipate, and you should be aware of it so that you can work on it. So in scenario based interviews, demonstrating your soft skills and situational awareness are very important part. So demonstrate these particular things. So when you are answering your question, basically work on these particular things over there, right? Apart from it, I'll give you a few tips in the end which can be there, which you can use, but that is the part of this particular slide: soft skills and situational awareness. Then guys, again as I said, one of the things which can help a lot, right, that is use of social networking. So you can take a screenshot of this one and then enlarge this particular one and read about it. You might have seen that these days AIs is basically giving, lots of people are creating reels and videos and YouTube shorts on these particular things, that how a social networking can be a valuable skill for preparing for your interviews. There are lots of hacks where you can basically increase your chances of getting that particular job. Like recently I was watching one video on Instagram and I got to know that there was one video that if you are having your resume on naukri.com, so that hack basically says that is every day in the morning during the time of 8 to 9 in the morning, always try to update your profile with some relevant info, either add it or either remove something, but try to update your profile between this time, because generally recruiters do sit on your profile around 10 a.m. in the morning, and they your profile, if you have edited your profile recently, it becomes more relevant to them, and it comes at the top for them when they will be viewing your profile. So that is a very simple and small thing which you can work, and maybe it can increase your chances to basically get a job. Apart from it, connect with another SOC analyst, another people within that organization, follow industry experts, join various relevant groups. I would say try to showcase yourself, use your social networking to network. Social networking is not just to basically make the friends and make the connections, but to make a network. That means try to connect with people, try to talk to them, try to identify that how these things can be helpful for you and how you can increase your chances. Let's say after the interview, try to connect to the interviewer, try to take a personal feedback that how was your interview and what are the areas where you can basically improve yourself. But it should not be like this that you are basically bothering some people. You should be selective and definite about what you are asking from the people, right? Sometimes people might basically consider you as a spam if you do basically bother them a lot. So be respectful to others, use social networking, but it's not just to basically engaging with someone in terms of personal arguments or something like that. When you are applying in a company, research about the company and research about the interview, see how many people have given the interview, try to identify those particular type of people, connect with interviewer on platforms like LinkedIn and other communities. Now if you will basically use the platforms like LinkedIn or Slack or Kaggle, right? Like you can say that your sometimes interviewer ask that what are your resources from where you do prepare. So you have to be very selective in that particular part, right? Like you can basically tell them that you use Twitch to basically see live sessions from the companies. It is one of the very underrated platform, but it gives a lot of relevant information. So there are lots of tools which can be used. You can like showcase yourself, showcase your projects, create a GitHub repo of your own, try to upload your work up over there which you have done in past or which you are expert in. Try to showcase, get some skills, try to showcase them to your LinkedIn profile so that when they do visit your social media, it can increase your chances to basically get up in that particular interview as compared to other candidates. Now Slack is one of the good platform, Discord is another good platform, Keybase is there, Element is there, Twitch is there. So lots of things are there which you can use in the market. Now these social networking sites, it's not just only to basically connect with people as I said or as I said, but try to basically participate in multiple different things. Let's say there is a conference happening in your city. Try to basically be part of that particular conference. Start as an attendee, then later you might basically put your expertise to become speaker. Try to do the networking with the people in those particular conferences. So these are like few of the things where you can use your networking and you can basically put yourself out of the box as compared to another ones. So these are like guys few of the pointers which can help you to crack your next interview of SOC.